All right, Shalom Yasharallah, Shalom Israel. Before we get any further within this lesson, I want to open up by giving all praises, honor, and glory with infinite blessings unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha, Hachwadash. And I also want to give double honors to our beloved other bishops and to the other apostles of Great Millstone that teach well and everywhere with much blessings and salutations going out to the hopeful elect, to the Akim, Wafi Akwaf that are tuning in, and always unto the brethren laboring within this truth, scattered across the four corners of the earth, wherever you may be. Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Barakatam, unto you and to your households. All right, in these evil days, in these evil times in which we are surely living in, which is it's very plain, all right, and evident, all right, that the end has been made manifest. So, quick article, because I guess it was published about 2 weeks ago, 3 to 2 weeks ago, and what's going on with this shit, man? Shit tweaking. Shit tripping. All right, but our article basically speaking about, potential T attacks happening here on the soil of America, which we know in the Holy Scriptures it's known as Babylon the Great. But America has a lot of enemies, man. A lot of enemies. All right, but let's get this article. It says Iran's military warns parks, recreational areas, and tourist destinations worldwide won't be safe for enemies. All right, it says Dubai, United Arab Emirates. It says Iran's military warns parks, recreational areas, and tourist destinations worldwide won't be safe for enemies. In which, we know who it's talking about, Let's see. Get an article to speak on it. All right. Because Iran ain't really got smoke with no one else besides them small hats. All right. And the Babylonians, man, America. But it says Iran warns parks, recreational areas, and tourist destinations worldwide won't be safe for enemies. All right. It says Jen Al-Pavzal Shakarai made the threat as Iran continues to be hit by American and Israeli strikes. It renewed concerns that Iran may revert to using militant attacks beyond the Middle East as a pressure tactic in the war. The U.S. and Israeli leaders have said that weeks of strikes have decimated Iran's military. Airstrikes have also killed its supreme leader, the head of its Supreme National Security Council, and a raft of other top-ranking military political leaders. It says on Thursday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claimed that Iran's navy was sunk and its air force in tatters, while adding that its ability to produce ballistic missiles had been taken out. Iran's Parliamentary Revolutionary Guard disputed the missile claim on Friday. Yeah, because it's a cap. And, first and foremost, before we go any further within this lesson, we're going to grab this. All right, because we're living in a time of great deceit, great lies. All right, where this devil, all right, he's going to do exactly what the devil does, and that's lie, deceive, okay, tell you something that is not, to have you to believe something that's not true. All right, Esau, Edom, all right, is the father of lies. All right, so let's get never trust thine enemy. Even with these whole potential T attacks happening on American soil, it ain't nothing for this devil to do it himself, like he's always been doing, and then make a narrative, all right, and then blame and point fingers. Meanwhile, as he's pointing, he has 4 fingers pointed right back at him. All right. But the point is, the book of Sirach, chapter 12 and verse 10, it says, never trust thy enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Yeah, and who is the enemy, man? First and foremost, the so-called white man, woman, and child, which are known as the biblical Edomites. All right. Biblical Edomites. All right, which is goes back to the lineage, all right, of the wicked. All right, they are known as the wicked. In the scriptures, the book of Obadiah tells you about them, who they are. All right, and currently how they are in charge of the world today, being these top big and elite families. All right, these small hats. Those are the biblical Edomites. All right. But the point being is, for as their iron, for like as iron rests, so is his wickedness, and now we're seeing his wickedness, all right, at a increasing more and more as the day goes by. All right, it's really being shown who is the devil that the Bible speaks of, because there is, all right, just that. It's a man. It's a person. All right, there's a physical counterpart of Satan, the spiritual demon Satan, which are these people. And this is why you're seeing them turning up so heavy and so hard the way that they are doing it. All right, now you got Trump talking about going over there and forcing the Strait of Hormuz to be open, and by force, all right, taking their oils, taking the resources over there from that land, basically now full on that Debo mode, because this is the wicked. All right, and this alone shows us, like, oh shit, like, that's the man. When we know when he would do these certain things, okay, like go to other lands, pillage, steal, do, etc., to get what he wants, to get what they want. It just goes back to show, their actions is what's really revealing them, who they are. All right. So it says, verse 11, though he humble himself and grow crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him. Yeah, because even with the starting of this war, the beginning of this war, the whole reasoning behind this war being started, which what they're saying to the world, all right, to the U.S. citizens, and they're trying to portray it as if it's so, those Iranians, all right, will not be able to possess, certain missiles, certain weaponry, which could destroy Babylon the Great. But whole time, these devils just want what they got. They want that land. They want Iran. They want Palestine. They want that. They want it all. All right, because it's a part of their agenda. It's a part of them building. It's a huge part and a staple of them building this new world order. And they're gonna do anything and everything they can, okay, to do that. And if it if that be, you know, casualties over here in the States created by, you know, your own government, you know, false flag attacks, T attacks, all right, governed and operated by their own government to take out their own people, they're gonna do that shit, bro, because this is the devil, all right? So this is why the scripture tells us, all right, you know, that's why it wouldn't be really wise, you know, to be fucking traveling, man, like traveling to the Bahamas, New York, you know, just like that's just not really the wisest thing to be doing right now, because, you know, war is taking place, wars are going on, all right, not just in the East, but all around the world, and it's a war on the people, it's a war on your spirit, it's a war on the masses, on the mind, all right? Esau, Edom has declared war, all right, with the children of Israel, with Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. He's declared war on everybody, bro. And this is how he's being outed. So the book of Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 14, it says, "Wherefore he saith, Awake thou that sleepest," all right, "and arise from the dead," which is talking about us. You know, we were spiritually dead, all right? We weren't physically, but we were spiritually dead, you know, to reality, you know, to what's really going on, to the true powers, all right, the true mighty power, all right, the Heavenly Father and the only begotten Son, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. You know, we were dead to this truth, you know, all right? The whole thing is that we've awoken, all right, to a war, which it was always going on. You know, this is an ancient war, all right, but we woke up in it. It's not like we wasn't in it because we were still asleep. No, we were just sleeping in war, because, you know, and now that we have awakened through the spirit and power and mercy of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, all right, now we gotta stay alive, you know, operate and move in the spirit, because the times that we're in, man, it's very, 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 very deadly. It's evil, you know, and it's so easy to be tricked, to be fooled, to be deceived, all right, because we're living in a world of lies, all right, and the only thing that can combat lies is the truth, all right, the word of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, which is quick, all right, it's powerful, bro, like a two-edged sword, you know, cutting shit down, cutting through bullshit, through lies, all right, through witchcraft, sorcery, you know, the deceit that this devil has pushed out, that thick darkness, that gross darkness that's upon these people, bro. Like people still don't know what the fuck's really going on, right? They just think, they don't, bro, I don't know what people think. I know for a fact, though, they don't know this is prophecy taking place, but we do, you know. So the water, Yahweh Ba'ashem Shai, but it says, "Wherefore he saith, Awake thou that sleepest, and arise from the dead," in Hamashiach, all right, Hamashiach in the Hebrew, that's you know, Christ in the Hebrew, which, you know, CHRIST just means anointed, which Hamashiach just means anointed as well, all right, but just talking about Yahweh Shai, all right, the King of righteousness, all right, the Lord of salvation. It says, "Shall give thee light," and the Lord has given us light through his word, you know, Baharakakwadash. It says, verse 15, "See then that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise." Circumspectly, bro, circumspectly, all right? Being aware of where you at, you know, being aware of who the fuck you around, who you dealing with, who you talking to. You gotta be, bro, you gotta remember, like, who these people is, bro. Like, bro, they not body. They not ultimately, they like the Agent Smiths, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they not helping you forward this ministry or get closer to Yahweh Shema Shai. All right, or respect you coming in that name, then they against you, bro. At the end of the day, and that's really where it's going to, like it's finna get down to that wire to where, like, it's that to that point, you know what I'm saying, where friends is gonna fight, all right, and like enemies, all right, those of thy own household shall be your foes. Like, it's finna get to that point, bro. All right, because prophecy is making it like that. The Yahweh Shema Shai is doing that. That power alone is doing that. You know, and not only to mention, this devil, Esau Edom, is on the fucking loose. This nigga is on the loose, and he ready to bring some death, destruction, man. This is how he gets down. He love this shit. He live for this shit. All right, scriptures tell us how he can't even fucking go to sleep. And they say, I can't even sleep. Bitch, I'm a mutt. Bitch, I'm a geek. He can't sleep unless he do some wickedness, bruh. Like, you know, thus saith the scripture. So we gonna grab that real quick. You know, I thought this was gonna be whatever, you know, the Lord wants. You know. All right. Here it is. The book of Proverbs, chapter 4 and verse 16. It says, for they sleep not, except they have done mischief. So these elites, these top baking families, all right, these fucking devil baby eating, blood drinking, all right, demon conjuring, all right, liars, you know, cannot rest. All right, they can't find a sense of peace within themselves, within their mind, their fucking wicked, disgusting mind. All right, unless they do some mischief, some disturbing, disgusting, all right, shit, man. Let's get the word mischief real quick. All right, because mischief to this devil, all right, it's like, man, that shit like ecstasy to this man. You know, they get hard off this shit. They love this shit, bro. They live for it. All right, we live for the opposite of what they live for. All right, which is we live for righteousness, bro. You know what I'm saying? So, mischiefs. It says evil condition, misfortune, hardship. It says wickedness. Ooh, wickedness, wrongdoing, evil. All right, and that's all a part of their plans. All right, evil, wrongdoing. You know, and this is just how, you know, Yahweh Shema Shai has created them. You know, the Lord has created them to be like that. Okay, for his purpose. All right, that this devil may be the Lord's sword to bring forth the will of Yahweh. Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. All right. So let's finish this off. It says, Proverbs 4 and 16, for they sleep not, except they have done mischief, and their sleep is taken away, unless they cause some to fall. Yeah, unless they cause some, all right, which some is in fucking the millions to the thousands, millions, all right, hundreds of millions to millions of people are either falling to, all right, this man's sorcery, okay, or falling, you know, into the grave, bro, to kill people. Because once again, this is a part of his new world order, all right, to depopulate the earth, to get it to a point to where 500 million, and this is worldwide, but this is the wicked that the Bible speaks of. All right, so let's go back to being circumspect. Ephesians 5:15, see then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise. Yeah, because we're in war. All right. You don't want to walk around this bitch with no helmet. Okay, no armor, no protection, man. All right, our protection is the scriptures. See how about Shema Shai? You know what I'm saying? So we have to walk with that spirit. All right, verse 16, redeeming the time, because the days are evil, meaning we in bad times, dog. Like, bro, gas is constantly going up, and it's going to keep going up, because this is going to be a part of what's going to bring these sorrows in. All right, fuel, the oil, it's everything. Systems are ran off of it, powered off of it. The grid is powered off of that. And now you have rationaling going on around the world due to the lack of fuel. These energy, it's going to be energy crisis, which the energy crisis comes more and more, and it's heavy to where it reaches Babylon the Great, and it's over. But there's talks of lockdowns possibly happening soon, very soon, which I do believe that is going to take place. What happened in the last crisis, man? C19, you know what happened. Lockdown happened. So we in that time, all right? The only way you're going to be able to redeem, all right, is buying back the times and watching, is by being in these scriptures and watching, the prophets, bro. Verse 17 says, wherefore be ye not unwise, but understanding what the will of Yahweh Bashim Shai is. All right. And what is that, man? The Lord's will is to destroy Babylon the Great, all right, and to establish the kingdom of Yasha Allah, all right, King Yahweh Shai, all right, upon the earth. So, yeah, just be aware, where you at, who you dealing with, because we living in that time, bro. We at war, so Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. Closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory with infinite blessings unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakha Chodash. Until next time I say